From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. Is Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the Junior. It's very important to remember the JR. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And today, also, hi to everyone out there on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. And I've been getting little emails and messages and texts from people that have stumbled upon us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. So I like that. So keep it coming. Let us know how you like it. And we will keep them coming. I can promise you that. A lot of people don't like us right now after our last podcast. There's no doubt about that. And they made their comments known and their feelings known towards us over the last couple of podcasts. But you know what? It's Christmas. Merry Christmas to all of you. We love you. This is not personal. This is all fun. This is football podcast, and we're just talking sports here. It's just what we do. Anyway, Friday, going into the weekend, not a normal Friday because the extra day got pushed back. Saints obviously travel out to Green Bay. What's the temperatures look like?
Cold.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. You're going to need some battery-powered heated gloves.
Yeah.
You're going to need about 3 jackets. I think they said feel-like temperature is going to be single digits.
It's going to be late. Ooh,
Aren't you glad you're not taking that trip?
Yes, I'm not taking that trip. Not mad about it. I don't do well in the cold weather. Would have been fun for you guys to see me on TV, like miserable for 3 hours. Because on Monday Night Football, we have to do more than just the pregame show. We got to do like the 4 o'clock news, the 5 o'clock news, then a 6 to 7 pregame show.
Plus the postgame show.
Yeah. Listen, I'll be fine right here in this comfy studio Monday night. All right, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. You know, after this, I've got a lot of last-minute Christmas shopping to do because why do all the shopping ahead of time to save yourself the headache? It's all about the thrill of being in a packed mall doing last-second Christmas shopping the weekend before the holidays.
Absolutely. I don't start till the weekend before. So
right.
I'm going to go Sunday to get all my stuff done. I get it all done in one day. One day. So I don't understand people stressing. Because I just show right up, I pick up what's there,
That's
and
what I'm saying.
I
There's gonna
roll
be
on
stuff
out.
there.
I have never once stressed about Christmas presents, but other people in my family certainly have. My wife being one of them. So nice work with that, wifey. All right, so today we are talking Saints, obviously, on this Friday. There's been a lot of things that have been updated over the last 24 hours, which we'll get into, and then we're heading into the backstretch of the season, final 3 games, Saints, Packers, Monday Night Football. Somehow it didn't get flexed out. We thought it would be.
Yeah.
It did not. And here they are. The Saints will be in front of a primetime audience on Monday night, 2 nights before Christmas. So I felt like, given their circumstances with Darren Rizzi and all the other things, in a Monday night opportunity, I thought Darren Rizzi's chances at earning this job based off this game would be a great place to go with the big picture.
Yeah, Darren Rizzi, it's kind of something we've been talking about every now and then when he comes up, ever since he got the job, is whether he's going to keep that job, whether they're going to take that interim tag off and make him the long-term head coach future of the New Orleans Saints. So the big picture today, Sean, as we look ahead to that Monday night game against the Green Bay Packers, how much would Darren Rizzi, led by starting quarterback Spencer Rattler, who he announced will start if Derek Carr is not able to go on Monday, how much could a win in the frozen tundra of Green Bay, Lambeau Field, how much could a win help Darren Rizzi's resume when it comes to keeping this job?
Yeah, it's a great topic because it is, to me, this is not any old game. This is a different set of circumstances, and it's not just one of 17, or I guess in Rizzi's case, one of 8. First off, you mentioned it, Spencer Rattler, Derek Carr. We did get a little more clarity on the Derek Carr situation on Thursday. Rizzi was emphatic. Carr wants to play. They want him to play. When he's able to have some functionality in that left hand, he will be able to play. Now, why do we believe him? Well, because he's not on IR. He's not on IR, and it would be very easy to put him on IR. So he could still come back. And I texted you in the middle of the press conference. I'm like, they get mad at us on here sometimes, but everything we said, Rizzi basically confirmed. I mean, he basically confirmed everything we said in the last pod. Like, why would he want Derek Carr to come back. 3 games left. You can see what you have. And Spencer Rattler, yada, yada, yada. He actually volunteered the information. And he says, why would I want Carr to play? Well, it's obvious. I've coached him now in 4 games where he started. We're 3-1, 68% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. Basically, what we all said, which was Rizzy still wants to win, guys. Yeah. He still wants to win. He does not care about the Saints draft pick next year because he wants to get the job first. So to get the job first, he wants to win. Planning for the future, like we've said a million times, means nothing to him if he hasn't been assured of future plans. Now, if he's been assured, then maybe you'll see something different. But as long as management is okay with letting him do whatever it takes to win that week, even if it's, you can't see what you have in a certain player, he's going to do what he thinks is best to win right now, and he's going to do it that way. Also, you mentioned something, too. Carr's desire to keep on playing is interesting in this whole scenario because what does he really have to gain in this? And I thought you brought up an interesting point, and it really boils down to 2 reasons, and it's pretty obvious. One, I think this is the biggest. I think he wants to play the Raiders. I think that's abundantly clear. He wants to play the Raiders next Sunday. I think it's a long shot for Monday night. Let's just be real. I think it's a long shot for Monday night. And B, there's no guarantee he knows what his future holds. I mean, he's got the contract that's somewhat protecting him, but a new coaching staff could want to, say goodbye to Derek Carr. So I think that's the case for a lot of players. And that's why, when a coach gets fired, it's one thing. A player, coaches get fired and the players, respond, whatever. But at some point, whoever the new coaching staff may or may not like you. So, and that coach that had you, that picked you, is now gone. The next coach may not like you. So, it's not just Rizzy. It's a lot of players, a lot of coaches that have a lot riding on the next 3 games of the season, the final 3 games. But I'm going on a tangent. But back to the topic at hand. Can Rizzy help himself with a win? Can he pad his resume with a win? Absolutely he can. Why couldn't he? Absolutely he can. If there is a game to showcase yourself, your personality, your demeanor, your strategy, your instincts, if you're Darren Rizzi, it is this one. It's the only Monday night opportunity you're going to get. It's the only primetime opportunity you're going to get. Coach Rizzi is very well liked, well known, and well respected in NFL coaching circles. But big picture, casual fan, probably casual owner, really doesn't know a whole lot about Darren Rizzi unless he has coached for one of those organizations where the owner, the owner of the organization that he's worked for. But Monday night, it's a different beast, man. It's a national stage. Whole world is watching. And that's even more of a, not just the whole world or sports world. That's a casual sort of living room type moment. So this is a chance to be on a big, big stage. It's his chance to kind of reintroduce himself to not just for this job. And this is what I've really started to key in on the last couple of weeks. It's not just for this job with Rizzi, but there's an entire head coaching circuit that's about to hit here. It's going to be black money's going to get here before you know it, where 4, 5, 6, 7 other coaches are going to get fired. And this is an opportunity to kind of say, oh, well, who's this guy? Especially if the Saints are scrappy, especially if the Saints or Rizzi, who we know is not shy on the sideline, kind of displays his passion and it's on full display for the world to see, and the team responds. And if they somehow pull off a win against a Super Bowl contender that's 10-4, with most likely a backup rookie quarterback, without Kamara, likely without Chris Olave, without Shaheed, without Taysom Hill, in the, was it 10 degrees, 12 degrees? What you said, it was cold temperatures, with really nothing to play for? I'm kind of rooting. I think that's a huge, huge, huge boost to Rizzi's resume. And it, like I said, you can't underestimate the stage that he's on. And I don't know about you. I know the Saints fans don't want this. They want them to lose out, and I get it. And honestly, if they lose out, so what? I don't care. I really don't. But I wouldn't have a problem with, and in fact, I'm kind of rooting for, Deuce alluded to this on Sunday after the game, let's go screw up somebody's playoff dreams for once. Let's go ruin someone else's plans for a change instead of having your own plans ruined, which have been ruined for quite some time now. So I think with the win, scrappy performance, but especially with the win, I think Rizzi walks away a very, very strong candidate for this job. I don't know if it puts him on the top of the list for this job, but I do think he can make a statement, especially if they win. If not here, in the NFL, to potentially be a head coach next year.
Yep, the window when it comes to that, it's still open for Darren Rizzi, but it's starting to close.
Yeah.
It's getting a little tight because what I said when Darren Rizzi first got the interim job, and we talked about, what's the chances of him keeping it, I said I wanted to see Darren Rizzi win a game he wasn't supposed to win. A game where we sit back and we said, wow, well, they wouldn't have won that game under Dennis Allen. And they win the game against the Falcons, but the first time they played Atlanta with Dennis Allen on the road, they should have beat the Falcons then. It was a good win.
I don't consider that one you shouldn't get. You should always be in the mix for your division rival.
That's what I'm saying. Your division rival. It was at home. Honestly, you could argue they got a bit outplayed by the Falcons, but they did win it. But I didn't necessarily walk away from that thinking, wow, that was a win we didn't expect Rizzi to get. Dennis Allen wanted to pull that one off because he should have pulled off the one in week 4. Then they beat Cleveland at home. Cleveland's not a very good team. The Rams. That was one of those games.
That was one, man.
If you can close the Rams, another playoff contender, at home, a healthy Rams team, then all of a sudden we're saying, okay, Rizzi, he would have started 3-0, by the way, as an interim coach in that situation. The only one to do that since 2000. Then everybody, not just in New Orleans, but around the league is saying, okay, that interim coach in New Orleans has something. So then after that, they go to New York, a sort of homecoming for Darren Rizzi. They win the game, but it wasn't very impressive.
No.
They should have beaten
Almost
that Giants
felt like a loss.
team. Exactly. It was a bad game. It was a boring game, if we're going to be honest with you. They won, 14-11 because of a miracle blocked field goal by Brian Brzee, which kept the game from going into overtime. And at that point, the Giants kind of had all of the momentum. So if it had gone to overtime, I don't know if the Saints pulled that one out, especially since Derek Carr got injured in the game. So they won against the Giants, but I don't think he necessarily earned many brownie points or coaching points with that win. Then you look to last week against the Washington Commanders.
Would have been one.
That's
that
another one of those games. That's another one of those games where you come in with, it was Jake Hayner, Spencer Rattler played, but you're coming in with 2 backup quarterbacks against another playoff contender. That's a game you're not supposed to win. If he closes that deal out, same thing. We're saying, okay, Rizzi, you weren't supposed to take that game. That was supposed to, I think the spread was 7.5. The Commanders were supposed to win that by a lot. They didn't, but you didn't win the game either if you're Darren Rizzi. So now I'm looking at the end of the schedule, these last 3 games. You've got this week against the Packers, Lambeau Field. This is another game you are not supposed to win against the 10-4 team that's looking to the playoffs and going to have to fight into the playoffs because despite being 10-4, they're third?
Third.
In their
They've got
division?
to win. Yes.
They need to win this game, and it's on primetime television. This is one of those games that you, if you're the Saints, down your starting quarterback, running back, 2 receivers, whatever you consider
Jack
Taysom
of all
Hill to
trades.
be. Without all of those guys and you still go into Lambeau in December and get a win, that's impressive. That's a game you're not supposed to pull off, but there's not many more of those on the schedule. Because up next after the Packers is the Raiders. You beat the Raiders. That's not necessarily going to turn anybody's head. You should beat the Raiders. And then last game on the schedule is against the Bucks, and maybe he can make a final argument, but it seems like at that point everybody kind of would have a good feeling and kind of have their mind made up if you didn't win this game against Green Bay. If you're Rizzi, you've got to show that you can do something that the previous guy couldn't. Win a game that you're not supposed to, because at this point I think fans are kind of tired of this old regime, and you touched on it. A lot of fans want to see a new name and a new face and a new ideology here leading the Saints in New Orleans, and it's going to come to a point where people look at management and say, well, why don't you feel that way?
Right.
Because the definition of insanity, Sean, doing the same old things over and over again and expecting different results.
Yes. And I'll throw another circumstance that works against the Saints, but also works in favor of the if Rizzi can overcome this narrative. That is, I just looked it up. Saints are 13.5-point underdogs. 13.5.
Man.
When's the last time there was a spread like that in the NFL? There's probably been a few this year with a couple ugly
Panthers,
games.
I think the Panthers were pretty.
But when was the last time the Saints were 13.5-point dogs?
I don't remember that one. That's tough.
I mean, right now it's minus 900 for the Packers on the money line, plus 600 for the Saints, over under 42. This is according. This was the latest odds. What am I reading here? That's well, this was last night. So maybe it changed a little bit, but ain't gonna move that much.
Yeah.
13.5. Rizzy has all the ammunition he needs to pull off the they don't like us, they don't believe in us, they think we suck, they think we're trash. We're going there. No one, legitimately no one is giving them a chance because you or I are not predicting them to win this game.
Definitely.
We are not. There is no chance. So it's all working in Rizzy's favor if he can overcome all this and pull off the stunner, pull off the upset. I think, and even if, let's just say they lose on a last-second field goal, doesn't that feel like a win for Rizzy? Kind of.
A little bit, but to me, like I look at the Commanders game. I guess you could say the same thing about the Commanders game. You know, being a 2-point conversion away from winning it, but at the end of the day, it's still a loss. I need him to get a real win.
See, all right. So here we go. I'll split the difference there. They win the game. His Saints resume gets better.
Yeah.
A fight hard loss, last second field goal, last second touchdown. You know, I think that helps his NFL resume. Hey, this guy's really getting the best out of this team because NFL circles, they understand how bad the roster is set up right now with the Saints, and they certainly understand the injury situation. But I think when it comes to the actual Saints job, and Jeff Duncan disagrees with this. He doesn't think the results matter. I think it really boils down to wins and losses. I think if he can get to 6-2 or 5-3, then he's got a legitimate shot to walk into Mickey's office and say, I'm the guy. And even with that, I still don't think he would be the favorite. But I think this would certainly help. And there really has to be a reasonable discussion of, okay, if he's not the front runner for this job, do we completely take him off the list and just go with guys outside the organization? Or do we keep him on the list and just kind of see where he would land in if we stacked our interviews up and who we think would be the best candidate for the job? And let's just say he's fourth on that list and the top 3 guys don't want the job. If you get it that way, I mean, that seems fairly reasonable process to go through as opposed to just anointing him off the interim energy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there. If you were handicapping it right now, does he get it or not get it right now?
Right now, I say he doesn't get it. But he can change that potentially with the win in Green Bay. But to answer your question, I think you definitely have to interview him. You got to keep him on because one thing that you can't debate is that he has gotten a new energy out of this team that was not there before. That was not there when they were getting blown out, when they were falling down early, when their defense was missing tackles. Like
I looked at it today. Just look at the points allowed on defense all of a sudden.
16 points
dropped
allowed
dramatically. Like
on average.
They
over the
weren't
last
trying.
5.
They were not giving it their 100% under the previous D-line coach and obviously head coach. They have a new defensive coordinator obviously calling plays, and they have a new defensive line coach. Look at the difference.
People were ready to let Cam Jordan walk. They were saying, you need to retire. Yeah. Now Cam Jordan was one of, if not the most impactful players for the Saints on the field against the Commanders. And it's Darren Rizzi that kind of brought that energy back. And he's got clearly the respect of the locker room. So if you as an organization, when the locker room and the players are looking at a guy who they respect, who has gotten them to play at a level that they were not playing before, if you as an organization don't even interview that guy, I think some of the players are maybe looking at you side-eye.
Yeah. First off, let me just say the initial question I posed, I still lean towards he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
I just hope his name pops up now, like because I think he's earned that. I think that's what he has earned. This, regardless of how the final 3 games go, I think he's earned that, at least that much. And I hope, and if he doesn't get it, that's fine anywhere. But I hope his name pops up in the interview circuit. Also, Brian Young has been with the organization for a very long time. I'm talking like since like 2006. He was a player. I think like really since like 2010, he's been like an intern and then kind of an assistant of an assistant type. It surprised me, he stuck here for that long for being a fairly lower tiered position considering he played for the Saints and really hanging that same position for a long time. So when he finally gets his opportunity, look at the difference. I mean, he's getting as much out of that defensive line as Ryan Nielsen did in a couple of weeks. Now, look, he's got some dogs to work with. I mean, it's great that they're finally living up to their billing. But I think that's been a huge and probably under-discussed aspect of their improvement under Rizzy was the coaching staff shift, which also goes to show you his coaching instincts. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But it also reiterates what we discussed last week. It's fine for you guys to check out and look for next year and the season's over, blah, blah, blah. But there's so much riding on this for Rizzy and his coaching staff. A lot of futures depend on this. And just imagine if you don't know what you're doing in the next year of your professional life. You got kids, they got school, they got all these things. So it's a very important stretch going forward. And I want to see them compete on Monday night. I really do. I'm not going to predict them to win. Maybe they cover, but I want to see them compete on Monday night.
Yeah, because one of the guys that does have a lot to earn from this game, maybe the guy who has the most to gain from this game, it might not be Darren Rizzi. It might be the starting quarterback, Spencer Rattler. Mm-hmm. We have been very outspoken on Spencer Rattler and, how we feel about him and the performances that he's had so far this season and how we see him in the Saints' future, or in some cases don't see him in the Saints' future. But how much of a statement would it be for a rookie quarterback, 5th-round pick, to walk into Lambeau Field, 5 degrees, it might be snowing, and beat the Packers on Monday Night Football with the world watching, because ain't no kids in school, 2 days before Christmas.
Absolutely, it would help them. I mean, and look, that would be their first win over a playoff team this year. I think all their wins have come against teams that aren't going to be in the playoffs, unless maybe you count the Falcons, who might be in the playoffs, but it certainly looks like they're trending in the wrong direction. I know your guy's about to start.
Michael Penix.
Well, just a little side note, a little intel that I was gathering in the draft process, Saints were at 14. Yeah. The guy they were hoping was going to fall was Penix. The guy they liked, I know for a fact, give him outside the top 3 that you knew was going to go 1, 2, 3, the Knicks, McCarthy, Penix, I know for a fact they like Penix, and I wouldn't have any problem with that at all.
I think the fan base would have loved that. You see how they act about Spencer Rattler. Yeah, right. Imagine how they would have been with Penix.
Yeah. But even if he doesn't necessarily play well, if he's kind of just scrappy and rugged and they were able to eke out a 13-10 type win, I think that would certainly help him. We're going to have a full-fledged Derek Carr pod coming up here and over the next couple of weeks. I can promise you that, just because there's a lot of layers to what the decision they have coming here. But I think, Rattler's going to get an opportunity if Carr can't go, and he's going to have the odds stacked against him. He'll have his offensive line, but he won't have many weapons. And he's going to be in the elements, and it's not a fun place to play. It's not an easy place to play, but you can't help when your opportunity comes. You just got to be ready when it comes, and hopefully he'll be ready this week. You got any questions?
We do. We've got some fan questions. First one from Blake Williams in New Orleans. Why haven't the Saints involved Jamal Williams more? Dude led the league in rushing touchdowns a couple years ago. 2022, Jamal Williams had 17 rushing touchdowns in his last year with the Lions. He has not had that kind of success since coming to New Orleans.
He's past his prime. He's not. He's just not the same player. He's not as talented. He's not as good as he once was. And the Saints would have loved for him to emerge as a guy. He never did. They had to rely on Taysom so much to be that second physical runner. And Kendrick wasn't available. Jamal Williams, I think, what game was it? Was it a couple games ago where he fumbles the opening kickoff. He's short on a fake. It was a Giants game. He was short on the fake punt. It was another miss that he had. That just hasn't worked out. And I think that's a player that's just past his prime.
Yeah, Jamal Williams averaging 3.7 yards a carry this year, which is up from the 2.9 he averaged the season before. And I like Jamal Williams a lot. A fellow anime guy. I love his personality. He's fun. He's of energy to the team. The team clearly loves him based off of everything that happened week 17 and getting his touchdown and everything. But, like you said, he just hasn't been able to be that same player that he was in Detroit. And even when you look at him in Detroit, that's a brilliant offensive mind in Ben Johnson that knew how to use them the right way. And a lot of those 17 rushing touchdowns, the majority of them came from within the 5-yard line based off of what Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and at the time it was DeAndre Swift, they would get you down there and then, first and goal from the 2-yard line, give it to Jamal to punch it in. Jamal's not that guy here. That guy here has been Taysom Hill. So you're not exactly using him in the same role. He's not getting the same quantity. And as a result of that, and plus just aging as a running back, you're not getting the same player.
It happens, man. I think he's 30 now, so it happens. Anything else?
Yeah, we've got one from our guy Quinzel Spikes and Angie. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the future of the New Orleans Saints?
Well, it depends on what you look at. I mean, look, there's always the draft coming up. There's always offseason always brings a little bit of hope, always brings a little bit of optimism. There's some decisions to be made. I do think I'm probably a little more pessimistic about going into this offseason as I was in years past because I just think they got an aging roster, and it finally caught up to them in wins and losses. They weren't able to hang on to the mediocre thing, the middle of the pack thing. So I think there is every offseason brings hope. But I just have to see how the Saints handle this salary cap situation and if it's going to be any different. And do they draft better? Because this team needs a big, young draft class that can come in and contribute right away. So is there a reason for hope? There always is. Every new offseason there is. But they got to get there first.
Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Yes, but it is a long tunnel. We're not talking about the Harvey tunnel. We are talking about a tunnel that is going to go and go and go. You really got to squint to see the light at the end of the tunnel because I said it earlier this season, the Saints are in for a long rebuild when they finally decide to press that button. You're going to need a franchise quarterback, running back. You're going to need depth at receivers. You're going to need to rebuild that offensive line. You're going to need help on defense in the secondary. Your linebackers. You're going to have to address pass rusher, especially if you can't get Chase Young to stay because Cam Jordan's only got so many years in him. Who's going to be your next DeMario Davis? Who's going to be your next DB, with Tyron starting to age as well. So you've got a lot of areas to address in the next few years.
And there's some major decisions coming up. Cam, Tyron, Taysom, DeMario. There's a lot. There's a lot to discuss. And when we get there, we will discuss it every single day we're on this pod. Real quick, we'll be back next Tuesday. Obviously not Wednesday. Monday's the game. And then on next Friday, Thursday or Friday. So be sure to tune into that next week. But I think we'll have one more pod before Christmas. So we'll save the Merry Christmases for then. But for Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.